Welcome to the Mike and Alison After Hours podcast with your hosts, Shelah and Alison Haase, talking business with real business owners in the Mid-Atlantic region. Today's episode is sponsored by Advantage Industries. When you need business technology, get Advantage Industries to protect and promote your business. To learn more, go to www.getadvantage.com and schedule your first meeting to see if you qualify for a free network scan.
Welcome to After Hours with Mike and Alison. I am your host, Mike Shelah, and the woman behind the voice, the always on point, the always on awesome, Alison Haase is with me today. Alison, how the heck are you?
I'm unseen because my camera won't work. Thank you, work security features. I am great. It actually lets me off the hook. I don't have to stare at myself the whole time. How are you, sir?
You know, I was going to make a joke about how screwed up the world is and how screwed up things have been. So for those of you that listened to our first episode, thank you so much. You'll notice we have a different name now. And there will be a point where Alice and I will be able to talk about that. But for now, just know that the show is now called Alison and Mike After Hours. And it's the same format. We've got a great slate of guests coming up for you in the next few episodes. And frankly, none as cool as the one that we're going to have on in a few minutes. Gary Ditto, the president of Who Staffing. And Alison, I know you haven't met Gary yet. He is a longtime friend of mine, an awesome guy. He actually, we met professionally about 10 years ago. And shortly after we met, we learned that we had actually known each other for a really long time. He used to be, and I'll get him to talk about this, but he used to be the drummer in the college band that my fraternity hired back in my UMBC days.
Wow.
There's a band called the Average Joes, and Gary was the drummer, and he's a passionate musician. He writes music, he performs, he loves doing that stuff. And in addition to that and running a business, he's a semi-pro golfer.
Of course he is.
So if you
I love it.
Want to go to a golf tournament, you want to win, you want to bring Gary along because he'll be your ringer.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's cool. And I'll have to make sure I comment and set a smile at people that can't actually see me because I've been smiling the whole time you're sharing. So that's fantastic. He sounds like a great guy.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. But as I said, wow, what a crazy, 8 weeks it's been since we recorded the last show?
Yeah, I can't believe it's been that long.
And so Tell our delightful audience what you've been up to. Catch us up a little bit. What is going on in Alison Haase's world?
Oh, geez. Is this all business? So, I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole that exists right now. There are a few, right? It's November 4th. But I will say that despite the world as it is, I really do feel blessed and somewhat insulated. I work very hard on myself personally so that my mind is of the pretense that no matter what, everything is okay and I have what I need and what I'm supposed to have. And I've really applied that to business, right? I mean, this is our busy time of year. And while I'm busy, it's a different kind of busy because things are not okay, right? And so I'm blessed to live with a business owner who reminds me, tactfully, of course, way more tactfully than I would remind him, that, it's a scary time for people to consider transition, even if the transition is positive. And so knowing that, I've really kind of funneled my efforts into being a resource, being of service, being genuinely helpful and totally okay, regardless of the results. And as a salesperson, and I know, we are results-oriented people. That's why they pay us, because if we're not going to do our job well. So they're banking on us being results-oriented, somewhat ego-driven. I will be the first to admit, right? My ego's in charge some of the time, a lot of the time here. And I'm competitive and I want to win. And I've evolved over the years to recognize that winning looks different than one outcome. But, I've really had to hone my humanness here over these last couple weeks and months to just accept the world as it is right now and the difficulty that is 2020 and maybe have a little bit of a sense of humor and a lot of humility, and thank God for people like you to stay grounded and just kind of in the middle, right?
Yeah, and you've probably heard me say this before, but we have a saying here in the Shelah family that if you don't laugh, you'll cry.
Oh, yeah. I admit I've done a little bit of both.
Yes.
And I think there's so much power in both, right? Admitting where you are, but not putting your head in the sand and staying there and waiting for someone to come rescue you, because that sure as heck isn't going to happen ever. So I appreciate that sentiment very much. Now your turn. How about you?
Well, boy, hasn't life been interesting, huh?
Yes, to say the least.
So I guess I'll start with something that was really cool. Yeah, I've been with Advantage Industries now just over a year. It was a year in September. And I took on this bigger role back in March when the whole pandemic thing hit. And that's when the ideas for let's get a podcast going and things like that. That's when the seeds were planted. But at my core, as you said, I'm a salesperson. My job is to find new clients specifically. We have a team that manages our existing customers and helps them with their needs and has them buy other products as they become appropriate for the client as they move through their journey with us. And my job is to find the new blood, really. So last week was a really landmark week for me because I brought in 3 new customers.
Wow.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you the last time I had 3 new customers in a month, let alone a single week.
Yeah.
So that was a big deal. And to talk about what it means to be a salesperson, right? And what it takes to bring on new customers. One of the deals was a much smaller piece of a much larger deal that we started talking about a year ago. So we had a client, they're in the restaurant business. They were going to go on board with us. And we were doing our final presentation the first week of the pandemic. And the client says, "Hey, Mike, this all looks great. Unfortunately, we let go of our entire staff. We have no revenue right now."
Gut wrenching.
Yeah, and that was the gut punch that COVID is, right?
Yep.
And then maybe 3 weeks ago, that customer came back and said, "Look, we need help with this one specific thing. Can you help us?"
Yep.
We said, "Absolutely."
Yep.
So that was, that's a nice return on investment, because now that we have the professional relationship, we have an agreement in place. Now we can begin to work on other things. And then, go ahead.
Yeah, it's hard because I can't see you. So I'm like, don't interrupt him. But I'm just thinking 2 things. One, resiliency as a salesperson, right? Like, I know for me, especially because I sold cars, which is the most transactional sale there is, it's hard to get out of that mindset. And for the budding newer salespeople out there, boots on the ground, your story is a beautiful example of the long-term game, right? And it benefits everyone, right? You left the door open. You were, I imagine, very gracious in, "Hey, I'm sorry you lost your entire staff, right? I'm really sorry. Let us know when and if we can help you." And guess what? You're the person they return to at the end of the year. And I have so many deals like that too. It didn't work out last year, but I intend to be where I am this time next year. So I'll be here when you're ready. So if it doesn't make sense now, for me, it's a not yet, not never, right? And so I think that's really important for newer salespeople to remember, and just the resiliency
in general. I think you and I have discussed this, that most small business owners, they are the sales team.
Yes.
Whether they like it or not.
Yep. Exactly.
And none of them want to learn sales and selling, but it's thrust upon them.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, they're the believer in their product, their business, right? So no one is going to believe more seriously and passionate than they. And to get it going and keep it going, they've got to harness that fire and maintain it, and then maybe hone some skills that are then transferable to the first rep, the second rep, the 15th rep. But yeah, I agree with you 100%.
And then the other two deals, one was not exactly a customer referral, but that's ultimately what you have to call it. It's an HR company, and they signed on with us because they were doing HR work for one of our clients.
Ah, interesting.
And they said, hey, we see you doing really great work for our client. We'd like to talk to you about doing that same great work for us.
I love it. I love it.
So that's, when most business owners think about how they're going to generate their business, that's really what they look to. That's what they tap into.
Yes.
And it is a piece of the puzzle, but it is not the puzzle.
Right.
And then the last one really represents not just how I go about my business, but things that we've been working on at Advantage for quite some time. We redesigned our website. We hired an outside marketing company. We're working on improving our SEO, getting more content on the web so that people can find us.
Mm-hmm.
And we got a lead on our website from a gentleman that was contracted by a medical facility to go out and find somebody to help with HIPAA compliance.
Interesting.
And he interviewed us. We had a call. It was myself and it was my security expert. We spent about 30 minutes on a video conference with him, talking through who we are, what we do, how we do what we do. He then introduced us to the customer. We had an initial meeting with the customer, and two things came out of that. One, they had some immediate needs, and we said, well, great. We can give you a block hour agreement, and we can get to work right away on those things for you. And they very quickly signed that.
Mm.
And then the longer range was, we need ongoing guidance, remediation work, support for HIPAA compliance. So we did an initial scan of their networks for them to help them understand what was going on. And that report, we generated this 27-page report for them without them paying us a dime.
That's beautiful.
And there are a lot of companies out there in my industry that will charge for that.
Yep.
And we could, but we think that it's a much better first step, because if somebody agrees to let us do that scan, they're making a conditional yes.
Right.
They're making that first commitment. And our success after those scans, I think, is like 85%, because there's always somebody that's going to be
of course,
someone
be our favorite.
Yeah. And that account will be a big one for us from a revenue standpoint, from a client standpoint. It's going to be very exciting. And so it looks like our guest has arrived.
Oh, great.
So I'm going to bring Gary in.
Super. Right on time.
Mr. Gary Ditto, welcome to the show.
Hey, Gary.
Mike and Alison, how are you guys today?
We are
great.
Fantastic, man. And the first half of the show, you'll have to go back and watch once we publish it. But Alison is having some technical issues. But she can hear you, and you can hear her.
But you cannot see me, and I cannot see you. I see GD, so that's good enough. But I figured it's better to be here than not. So I do apologize for not having a visual, and I will do my best to let you know I'm smiling and nodding and listening.
You were up all night waiting for the election results, and you didn't get a chance to do the hair and makeup thing.
Yep,
you know waiting. What, Gary? That was the theme of the first half of the show is, wow, could our world be any more upside down than it is right now? COVID, the election, murder hornets, you name it. There's just the craziest stuff is going on in our world right now. And I was
truth
telling
is better than fiction.
Yes.
Yes.
I was telling the audience some fun facts about you, but let me do the formal part. For those of you that are not familiar with Gary Ditto is the president of Who, a staffing company, which he founded in the fall of 2011. Among his duties are overall strategic direction of the company's business development and client relationship management. Gary's vision of creating an organization that equally serves the talent acquisition needs of the client, as well as the personal aspirations of the talented professionals being represented, drives Who forward on a daily basis and provides a unique experience for those that choose to partner with Who. So, Gary, stoked to have you on the show.
Thanks, Mike. Always a pleasure to be with you, my friend.
And I was telling Allison that you and I sort of had two stages of introduction. You know, we met not long before you started your own company, and you had been working for a very successful staffing company at that time with somebody that you were longtime friends with, and we don't have to get into all the exit strategies and such, but it was presented to you that you had an opportunity to strike out on your own, and that was right around when you and I met professionally, and then you and I were having lunch one day. And we figured out that we actually knew each other from like back in 1993 because you were the drummer for the garage band that played for my fraternity back in college.
You got it. You got it. The old Average Joe's days. That was good stuff.
Yeah, and then we figured out that we're both good friends with Dave Teef, and we know a lot of people in a lot of different circles. And I also told Allison that the next time she goes to a golf tournament, she absolutely wants to bring you because you're the ringer.
Would love to play with you, Allison. I look forward to the invite.
It'll be more of a teaching lesson, Gary. Full disclosure.
That's fine.
My mom was a single handicap golfer prior to MS taking that sport away from her, but I did not pick it up. However, I'm not dead yet, so I'm open to the opportunity.
It's got to be in the gene pool there somewhere.
Let's hope. For your sake more than mine.
We'll figure it out.
Thank you.
So Gary, Allison's going to take a few minutes to take you through the W section of the sheet I sent over to you, the who, what, where, when, why, how. And then I'm going to spend a few minutes going through some of those questions that we had flung past you. But, ultimately, this is a conversation, and we really want you to showcase your company. You've done some awfully impressive things in a relatively short period of time. And for our audience, you're a successful entrepreneur, you're a successful businessman, and we're hoping that they can learn something from you and implement it to their business. So with that, Allison, run through the W's and the H.
Sure. So Gary, this part is flexible, right? You can share more professionally, more personally. We've had a beautiful intro already now about who you are, but if there's anything you want to extend and add to that, please do. So let's start with that. What do you want our listeners to know about who you are?
Yeah, I mean, it's, we'll talk about a little bit about the question of, was I planning on ever being a business owner? No, the answer is simply no, right? It wasn't anything. There are folks that I would say are a lot more entrepreneurial spirited than I was. It's basically out of necessity. I found myself with an opportunity that was presented to me, and I would go back to, having surrounding yourself with the right people in your life affords you opportunities that you might not have otherwise. So because of some great relationships I've had from childhood, they've always been there to support me when I was in times of need, and the opportunity to start my own company came about from one of those relationships, excuse me, and we jumped at it, and things have turned out well. And I think that for a lack of other reasons, it's just that good people doing good things and trying to take care of one another generally works out for everybody's benefit.
Humble leader, I love it, and giving credit where credit is due. I love that too. I I was once a business owner myself, didn't envision that, but didn't envision anything else either. It was just one of those things I stumbled upon and then fell on my face for 8 years. But, here we are on the other side, right?
There you go. There you go.
I feel like we've touched on what a little bit. So how about when?
So it was fall of 2011, the end of the summer of 2011. I was presented an opportunity to strike out, as Mike said, on my own, and we jumped at that opportunity, not really knowing how successful we were going to be, but I rallied the troops and put a good team together, and here we are 9 years later, and things are going great. We've never had a better team, that we've assembled, and my business partner and I now kind of co-running the organization, and we're really excited about the future and the growth of the organization moving forward.
I love that. So then we can bridge to, where do you serve and what kind of space you're occupying, and then back to the what. Of course, we know you're doing staffing, but how are you differentiating yourself?
Yeah, so we are, historically, my background was in IT staffing and supporting and providing resources that were technologists to our client companies, and those clients are in a multitude of different industry verticals, right? So, technology touches on everything. So everybody is a consumer of and a needer of technology professionals. Right. So that was the foundation for the organization. We have since added a second business practice, recruiting practice, which we call our business operations team. Okay. And that makes up of placement of sales, marketing, HR, and pure operation resources. So it allowed us, the addition of that practice allowed us to go back to our old customers and say, hey, I used to refer you out to some folks when it was outside of the IT bailiwick, but now we're able to support you because we have that in-house expertise. And it also allowed us to go to the customers that we acquired because of that building of that practice and say, hey, we can also support your IT needs. So it's been great for us. So to the differentiator comment, what I always kind of saw as a gap in the industry, and not to offend lawyers and car salesmen, but lawyers, car salesmen, and recruiters basically had the same reputation, right? And we were all in it for ourselves, and if we could make money off of you, we would, and if we couldn't, we didn't have any time for you. So the gap that we really saw, Allison, was the client was always a well-served market because they, at the end of the day, they wrote the check that was cashed when a transaction occurred. And the candidate market, the talent market, always was an underserved piece of that equation, right? They were the underserved third arm of that triangle. And for me, it didn't really make sense. It was, again, you don't burn that relationship because you can't make a placement with that person today. Build the relationship, be a resource for them, help them in any way you can. If somebody else winds up placing them because they come to them with a better job or a job that suits them better, good for them, right? And they're in a better place, and they've accomplished what you were there to help them accomplish, which is improve their professional situation. And I can't tell you how many times that mentality has turned back around and benefited us because someone experienced, and so what we really try and strive ourselves on is the candidate experience throughout the recruiting process, and improving that and making that as comfortable for them and as meaningful and valuable for the candidate as we could. So that's often turned around, and somebody that we didn't place will call me 6 months later and be in a position of hiring authority and say, hey, I just wanted to reach out because I need to hire somebody now, and I want people to go through the experience that I went through when I was working with your organization. And that's, it's not just with me. That is something that we preach up and down throughout the organization, and everybody really makes that a number one priority, is the candidate experience. So, that's really, and furthermore, my thought was, hey, an artist or an actor or a musician can have an agent that is always looking out for their best interest. Why can't a kick-ass software engineer or a great project manager or the best business development executive in town have that same representation,
Yeah.
that same level of service. So that's kind of what we tried to build, really, is a, for lack of a better term, a talent agency. And I think that mentality also serves the client better because we have such deep relationships with the talent community.
No, I love that. You're paying it forward. And then, of course, the candidate experience. We talk about that when people are interviewing candidates. That's the first snapshot of a business, right? And it's just as important as being hired and then staying, and how you're treated when you're terminated. So I love that. And I think what a brilliant second vertical to tie and marry your others. That's great. And so what region, Gary, are you serving?
Yeah, so we are, when we talk about marketing dollars and marketing efforts, we are a Baltimore company, right? And so that's Greater Baltimore, Baltimore City, the surrounding counties that touch. We get pulled into, I've had great relationships with some folks in Northern Virginia and down in other counties outside, and we've done work up in Frederick and outside, and then we get pulled into our relationships pull us outside of the area on many occasions. But when it comes to really where we're spending our time trying to be valuable, it really is, we are a Greater Baltimore based company.
That's great. And us, I'm a Baltimore resident, so I'll say that. Columbia right now, but from Northern Baltimore County, so I appreciate us Marylanders. So
little known fact is I'm 54 years of my life, which is the entirety, has been in one zip code. So
where's that?
That's in Reisterstown.
Nice. My brother and his wife live in Reisterstown. So it's a great area. I'm from Northern Baltimore County myself, so that's great.
Yep.
So why, right? And I know in the beginning you said it was the right people at the right time, but what has continued to fuel you for these 9 years in business?
That's a great question. What I always like to say is, I don't know that I am, a staffing industry expert, right? I've learned to become one. The people that are on my team are, I can't imagine them ever doing anything else. So as Mike kind of alluded to, my career was, when I got out of college, I was playing music full time, basically for the better part of 9 years. I then had a second career as a golf professional for the better part of 14 years, and then worked my way out of those industries into a much more traditional business role, doing sales and business development. And then the entrepreneurial role of founding the staffing agency. What I like to do is build teams, right, and connect with people. So, what I say is I want to build a team that, regardless of what we're doing every day, I feel like I want to go to war with this team, and I feel comfortable that we can go compete in any industry. It just so happens that I put a team together of really fantastic staffing industry professionals. So that's where we're going to go every day and ply that trade. So, but I mean, why is really like putting people together that share values and have the same kind of value systems, and then take care of our clients in that industry.
I love that. And I imagine the last part of our intro here is how, right? So you have this phenomenal team, and I have some friends that are recruiters and headhunters, so I know a little bit, but tell us, how are you out there putting these people together?
Yeah, well, if I gave you all my secrets, Alison, then nobody would ever no.
Audience approved.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough industry, right? And it's helping clients understand, getting them past a resume. It's allowing, it's telling a person's story, and first we have to understand what story is going to resonate with the hiring manager and the company and the employer, right? Because we're not trying to make matches that only benefit the employee. We're trying to make matches that are long-term matches that benefit both parties and wind up becoming healthy long-term engagements. And so, it's understanding the client, it's understanding the candidate, it's understanding what everybody's motivations are. It's understanding, what are the key criteria? What can we, do without, for lack of better, can we train on skills and hire for the right personality? Can we, and all of those things in every single engagement, it's something different. and that's what kind of keeps it fresh and exciting for us too, is right. It's every software engineer search isn't the same. It's
Right.
there's certain different skill sets that are needed. There's situations and environments that our clients or candidates are coming from that they're looking to either avoid again in future professional homes, or so every single one's different. But we're doing a lot of the same. There's a lot of grinding behind the scenes to go on to find the talent.
Yeah.
Obviously, our value prop is to the folks is that while we have to do like the mandatory things of using job databases and paid database searches and things like that, and Indeed and LinkedIn, the real value for us is having a deep network of Baltimore industry talent and being able to leverage that passive person and going to that person and saying, hey, Mike, I know you're not looking right now because you told me how happy you are in your role, but here's something that I need to share with you because it sounds exactly like what I know that you've been looking for in your entire career. And then have that conversation and be able to bring the person that doesn't know they're looking for a new opportunity to bear to an opportunity and see if it's a good match.
I love it. And what a perfect, thank you, Gary, segue for Mike here to take over and guide us through these questions.
Gary, you just touched on something that, and I've talked to you about this quite a bit. So again, behind the scenes, Gary and I, pre-COVID, we would get together for lunch or an adult beverage every 3-4 months or so and have conversations. And we're always looking to open doors for one another. And I tell people all the time, I meet a lot of recruiters. There was a point where, I'm not exaggerating, once a week I had a new recruiter in my inbox saying, hey, I've got a great opportunity for you. And very candidly, most of them suck. Gary is one of a handful. And I literally have 3 or 4 people that when I'm trying to help a friend, Gary is one of them that I say, hey, I'm going to introduce you to my friend Gary. And it's all built into what you just said. And in addition to that point, I talk to college students all the time about finding a job. And they say, well, how do I let recruiters know that I'm available? I said, a good recruiter doesn't care. A good recruiter is going to recognize you have the skills and the talents that they're looking for, and they'd be foolish to not at least show it to you. Now, if you say no, you say no. But if they see the person that fits the glass slipper, they got to go and try the slipper on before midnight. They do. So your content was on point and is always appreciated.
Yeah. And that's a great analogy, Mike. And furthermore, for those folks, what I say is, even though most of the time when companies are coming to an agency and paying a fee, the entry level folks, the college guys aren't, it's usually a mid-level or senior level position that they're coming for. I welcome building these relationships with these folks that are coming out, because hey, in 2 or 3 years, they're going to be the people that we need to find and attract. And a lot of times, my recruiters will tell me all the time that 2 to 3 year person, finding that person is harder than finding the 8-year person. The 8-year person may be a little jaded and ready to have conversation. That 2 to 3 year person sometimes gets a little, jittery when they're approached about new opportunities, because they're not sure if it's good timing to be looking at new things and what have you. So, but anytime we get, and I appreciate all of the referrals, Mike, that you make, and I always try to carve out time to make sure I can talk to those folks and be a resource for them, whether I can help them in the near term, short term, whatever. I always try to, make myself available, do some coaching, have some conversation, and then, see where that goes. So I much appreciate it. And to your point also, there are some, not to bash, I made the comment about reputations. There are some really bad ones in the area, in which the bar's not set that high. But, we're lucky in the Baltimore area. There's some good folks that are friendly competitors to myself or great referral partners to us that are out there. And, so there are, don't be too concerned that you can't find a good recruiter, because there are some good ones out there.
Yeah, Allison and I talk a lot about that because every industry you find that, right? If there's 100 people that have experience doing a job, it's probably 5 to 7 of them that are actually really good at it. Right. And the other 93 are some variation of okay to awful. and you don't. And part of the reason Allison and I wanted to do this show was to help the business world understand, look, there are some good salespeople out there that genuinely care about what you want, what your goals are, what you're trying to achieve. And I understand how easy it is to be bitter and jaded. I get at least one email a day from the latest whiz-bang marketing guru who tells me they have a guaranteed process for generating 10 or more new leads a month for me.
Yep.
Unlimited. I love
automated.
There's a handful of words in the sales world you need to stay away from. Always, never, unlimited.
Yeah.
Because you can't guarantee those things.
No.
And guarantee. Don't say that either. Ever.
But what I love about what you were saying, Gary, brings two of our questions together. The attributes of leadership and the attributes of a great team. When you started Who Staffing, you didn't set out to say, I'm going to be a leader of people. That just kind of came with the job. Yep. So how has leadership evolved for you over the last 9 or so years?
Yeah, I mean, it's I think, and I've had some really, really good mentors. So back to Allison's comment she made earlier, I guess, was, she was hearing a humble leader, and that's something that I've tried to be. I always say that I will take the blame for anything, and I will give the credit out. That's another thing that, if we're doing well, it's because my team is doing really well. And if something's going sideways, then that's my fault, right? So that's something that we really try to focus on. It's really kind of looking at big picture type things. And then, what's really helped me, and I don't know if you guys are familiar with, there's a business management platform called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System.
Traction,
yeah, and it's really made my role as a leader a lot easier, and because I bought into the philosophy, I bought into that management platform and style. I've tried to simplify as many things in our organization as we can, and focus on the 6 ingredients that they talk about in Traction. So, one thing I would recommend to anybody that does listen or sees this interview, do yourself a favor and check that out. If you're in a leadership role and you're in an organization that you think that maybe, could be run a little bit more finely tuned and efficiently, because it's been life-changing for us at Who Staffing. But, the leadership style, I really think it's like my role is really to support my team and to make their life easier and to make everyone better without needing to take any of the credit for doing that.
Yeah, and you know what? I had completely forgotten that you were embracing the EOS model. And I think you and I talked about this when I first started at Advantage, but my very first interview with the president, Keith, he brings up the EOS model and he talks about this book, Traction. And in the 30 minutes that we were on the phone, and by the way, he was on vacation, but he thought it was that important to talk to me that he took a 30-minute call. He must have mentioned Traction 5 times.
Yeah.
And I said, this is obviously important to him. I immediately went out and downloaded the Audible, and we had a follow-up meeting a week later. And he brought up Traction. I said, yeah, I'm halfway through it. And I think that, as much as anything else, got me the job.
Yeah.
Certainly my skills, my background, all that stuff. But I think doing that helps solidify the opportunity. And I think also what you keyed in on is we are in the human world, and our sales involve the maneuvering of human beings, right?
Mm-hmm.
In the most ethical and legal sense of the words. And because that is there, it's not a formula. It's not A plus B equals C.
No.
There is this wonderfully maddening component that is the human element.
Mm-hmm.
And it really can change how we engage. And, you know, I think one of my favorite things about you, and I can say this because I've seen you in action. So for those that don't know, Gary and I were both on the board of directors for a local nonprofit here in Carroll County together for many years. Gary was actually acting president when I was on the board. And Gary has also been a client of mine. I've done some consulting work with his team. And my favorite thing about Gary is if he disagrees with you, he will tell you. And he's professional about it, but he doesn't sugarcoat it. He's going to put it, hey, no, we're not doing that. And here's why. And I think that's leadership too. You know, you have to have a safe space to disagree with people. And from what I've seen, you don't have any ego or animosity. You're very self-assured, but I think for good reason, because you know what you're doing. And as you said, you're not going to just throw something out there. You're certainly going to question, you're going to challenge. So I think that wraps into your leadership and your team mentality, and I love it. So I'm guessing the hardest moment was that day you're like, oh, I guess I'm doing this.
Yeah, for sure, right? The hardest moment when that question came, and my 75-pound chocolate lab just got home from daycare, so she may jump on me here in a second. But yeah, I mean, so the hardest moment for sure was getting started, right? And there was, the day before we decided to get started, I was ready to call it off and call it quits and not do it. So, but yeah, getting started was the hardest day one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So what was your biggest moment? What's the moment you look back on in the last 9 years and go, wow, I know you've gotten a few accolades, more than a few, both publicly. You've been recognized by several organizations for being a fast-growing company. When I say fast-growing in the right way.
Yeah.
So, what's your best moment? What's the one that you hold as proudest?
I mean, I think, again, back to the start, I had some really good friends that all served as capital investors and made some financial, investment in me, because there was no company. So they invested in me. And when I had the ability to, I guess it was 5.5 years into the life cycle of the company, be able to my partner and I put some money together and turn around and pay those guys back and off and buy them out of their ownership stake in the organization, to a nice profit for them, was very gratifying for me, because it rewarded them for that trust and faith and investment that they placed in me. But it also, paved the way for me to build my own future, right? And have this company be, the thing that can change my lifestyle and the lifestyle for my family and the families of my teammates too. So
that's fantastic. I never knew that part about you. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the word future. Great segue. So tell me what short term, what does 2021 look like? But what does Who Staffing look like, 5 years from now, 10 years? EOS guy, I know you've got a vision.
Yeah, so we do. I'll start with the short term, and I'll say, who in the hell knows, right? Who knew what 2020 was going to be? So, and if I'm crystal balling this thing, I am pleasantly surprised with the speed of the recovery. So, what the government did worked for many people. Now, obviously, I know there's still a lot of people that are suffering and going through hard times, but in our world, which is all I can really speak to, the recovery outside of the May, June, July kind of time frame has been better than expected. So I'm very optimistic when it comes to 2021. I think 2021 is really a time for us to really formalize and market the two distinct practices that we have and be able to really build those both up, the IT and the business operations practice. And then long term, when we started EOS, that was 2018, and our, most of the time that's like a 10-year goal, the long-term goal. We made it a 2025 goal, so a 7-year goal. We want to be, we want to be a $10 million company, doing X amount of placements a year, running a top line, that revenue number at $10 million, a net profitability number that meets our needs, and continuing to grow and look at opportunities. So touching on, where does the next opportunity come from? I wasn't necessarily looking to add this business operations practice to the portfolio of what we did. We had a referral partner that did sales consulting and sales recruiting that came to me and said, "Hey, we're getting out of the recruiting game. What do you want to talk to any of our employees?" And we put a deal together where we were able to absorb, their leading producer and service their existing clients. So it met a need for us. It allowed them to kind of, walk away without leaving their clients empty-handed, without somebody to go to. So, if we find the right people that we can build another practice around, that would certainly be an opportunity. If we grow a little bit of geographical footprint, that's certainly an opportunity. So, I can't say where that's going to come from, but I know that I'm always kind of geared towards, I'll have more conversations and look and talk about opportunities, whether they be formal partnerships or, acquisition type things or whatever. I'm always open to hearing about different paths and avenues towards growth, and then finding out which ones. And it's got to feel right. It's got to not sacrifice any of our core values. It's got to be the right people at the right time for the right reason. And then if that makes sense, we'll certainly take advantage of some of those opportunities.
All right, so I'm going to combine these last two questions because I think they go together really well. So let's travel back in time to 1993, and you're sitting on that drum throne, you're banging out some rhythms, and the Gary Ditto of today walks by and goes, "Wow, that's me. I've got a chance. I have a real opportunity here." So you walk over to your younger self and you say, "Gary, come here for a minute. I know this is crazy, but it's me. It's me from 2020. I'm not going to tell you about the whole quarantine thing, but I've got a piece of information that I think is going to help you through all of this." What is that piece of information? Because it probably applies to basically every entrepreneur or business owner that's listening.
Yeah. That's a great question. I would say, I guess what I would say is, hey, enjoy where you are right now, right? Enjoy the time, enjoy the people you're with, enjoy these experiences, because they're probably not going to last forever. And build those relationships with the people that are in your world today. And luckily most of those for me are still in my world, and I get to still see them and talk to them. And, it's just, I'm doing something different for a paycheck, but those are still important. Those were important times for me. And I would just say, hey, enjoy the hell out of yourself.
I love it.
So Gary, that's phenomenal, because I think you touched on something that we all lose sight of pretty easy, and that's enjoy this moment, whether you're 23, whether you're 53, or somewhere in the middle. Enjoy what's going on right in this moment, because as good or as bad as things are, they will not be that way perpetually. So as bad as things are at this moment, they can be very different as soon as tomorrow. And as good as things are, they could be
change
radically
quick.
different in less than 24 hours.
Yeah.
So thank you, my friend.
Yeah.
Tremendous insight. Really enjoyed having you on the show. And thank you to our audience. Thank you to my awesome co-host, Allison. I promise we're going to get the camera thing fixed so everybody can see you again. And
thank you.
This is episode 2 of Mike and Allison After Hours. And we have a tremendous slate coming up for you folks. We are going to be talking with other people in the wireless industry and in the real estate industry. And we have another recruiting company coming on board, somebody that you're good friends with as well, Gary. And we're doing a special Thanksgiving episode where Allison and I are going to interview 2 nonprofits that are very near and dear to our hearts. So we're looking forward. Folks, thank you for checking into Mike and Allison After Hours. And please remember, people helping people, it is powerful stuff.
Thanks, you so much, Gary. What a fun conversation.
I appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you for joining Mike and Allison After Hours. Tune in next time for another great business owner sharing valuable industry ideas. Want to be a guest on our show? Contact us at answers@getadvantage.com.